All right, welcome to episode 2 of Behind the Visual, a podcast that interviews the people responsible for creating, producing, and putting together all the pictures and videos you see in your world every day. I'm your host, Mark Hansen, and today we have Jamey Boiter. And Jamey is the brand principal and COO of BoltGroup, a design, innovation, and experience firm whose client list includes some of the biggest companies in the world, such as Coca-Cola, Lowe, Chick-Fil-A, Izod, Phillips Van Huesen, Speedo, and many more. So if you guys are interested in seeing what BoltGroup does or possibly working with them, please go check them out at www.boltgroup.com. All right. Thank you, Jamey. Again, for being here and agreeing to do this and kind of giving us an idea of what it takes to bring all these ideas to life.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, tell us a little bit about you and how, we got to where you are and BoltGroup, how it came about and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. Well, we've been, next year will be our 35th year that we've been in business. And I've been here for most of that, all but a couple of years. I got my start really in college. Discovered graphic design after thinking I wanted to be an architect, and took an introductory class and really sort of fell in love with how to communicate visually and verbally, and had been talented. I painted and drew when I was a kid and that kind of thing. So really trying to find what I wanted to do. My professor was a bit of a mentor and really sort of was the one that encouraged me to go to design school. And so ultimately he told me he was retiring and that I needed to get out of there. And so I got my portfolio together and transferred from Clemson and ended up getting my BFA from East Carolina from their School of Art and Design. And from there I sort of made my way back toward Charlotte and had worked a couple of studios and sort of put my own shingle out and started working freelancing and consulting with other small design firms around town. Met Monty, and he had some projects. Monty Montague, one of my current partners, and we began working on some projects together. And over the next few months, maybe 6 months, we realized that maybe this was something we wanted to do more permanently. And so I went to work full time, and then a few years later after that, we changed the name to BoltGroup, and when I became one of the owners.
And how'd you come up with the name Bolt?
Well, really, because there was a change in ownership, we wanted to change the name and sort of get all the names off of the door, because we weren't a law firm. And so late one night, I was in the studio doing an ideation session, and we were just flipping through, and I literally was going through Webster's Unabridged Dictionary. We still got it. It's like this thick. And I came across Bolt, B-O-L-T. And there are 14 definitions to that word. And as a product innovation and brand development firm, we mean different things to different clients. And for a lot of clients, they would come to us when there was a speed to get to market. So bolting ahead of the pack. For others, they come to us for wildly creative solutions. So it was a bolt out of the blue. For others, it was connecting parts together, or bringing customers together through a solution. So we're bolting that together. And for others, it's hitting the mark. So a bolt in a crossbow. So it really sort of became, well, this really explains who we are from our customer's perspective. And so I developed a rationale, typed it up, presented it to my partners the next morning. We all kind of looked at one another and said, Bolt, that's pretty cool, let's look at that. And so did a quick IP check, it was available, so we incorporated it as BoltGroup.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially I did an IP check on Mark Hansen Photography, and it was taken. And he wouldn't sell it.
I've been working for the wrong guy all this time.
Yeah. That dude wouldn't sell it either. I was like, I'll give you $1,000. He's like,
Nope.
no. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we were able to we got protection now we had to incorporate as the BoltGroup Incorporated, and we had a DBA of Bolt because a lot of people just refer to us that way.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we kind of go by BoltGroup for the most part. But yeah, we were able to get some protection on it. So
That's good.
yeah, which is really good. I mean, that's part of what we do. We've named dozens and dozens of products and a number of companies in the 34 years that we've been around. So it's kind of part of our process anyway, and the whole name development piece of it, or brand development. Yeah.
So tell me how you guys, when you first started out, and even now, how you get these major worldwide clients, because it's not like you just walk in the door and go, hey, we want to work with you guys, and they go, all right, come on in the door, let's do it.
There is some knocking on the doors, and we have an ongoing marketing development program, and Ed Holm, who's one of my partners, Ed's responsibility is business development, and over the years we still get about, I would say, 80-85% of our business through referral or network, as do a lot of other firms like ours. But we have an outreach program, and for like a Coca-Cola kind of thing, that's a campaign. Yeah. You do go down and knock on doors, and you meet people. You get placed here. You might get the chance to do a project, and then based on the results of that project, you're introduced to someone else, and before you know it, you've kind of worked yourself into being relied upon, and you become a good resource. And so this when we were one of many agencies of record for Coca-Cola, most of our work was focused around occasion-based marketing. So we were activating their brands in various ways at retail through various programs, and that was a lot of what we did, just based on the talent that we have here. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Just to get in the door, I would think at Coke, you gotta have something.
Well, it was. I mean, we had it started small, and then it kind of mushroomed. I think one of the things that differentiated us from a lot of other firms were the fact that we did have industrial design and graphic design sitting side by side, and we had experience at retail of developing experience design. So that was a lot of the work that we did, as opposed to working on the Coca-Cola brand. Right. We were activating the Coca-Cola brand. How does it act at retail, and how do we did a lot of co-marketing, co-branding work, with Kraft and Coca-Cola, or with Nabisco and Coca-Cola. So it's like, how do you take two ubiquitous brands like DiGiorno Pizza and Coca-Cola, and how do you put them together at retail to create a solution for mom, a dinner solution? So make memories together, kind of thing, or Together Tonight. Was one of the programs where we came up with, where we've got a cooler of 2-liter Cokes sitting on an end cap, and then right beside that we've got a freezer full of DiGiorno pizza, and we designed a cover that where the actual, it looked like a side-by-side refrigerator freezer, and so we did Together Tonight, so it takes, the idea, we were trying to solve problems, and that's really what design is, and that's what we do.
Yeah. But you guys also, like I just learned the other day, you guys also design products and come up with Cobalt.
Sure.
Those.
Yeah, Cobalt Tools was a great program for us. It was, it's been about 20 years ago now, maybe just a little bit more than that, about 20 years ago. But yeah, we were already working with Lowe's on some other projects, and Dale Pond, who was the CMO at the time, came to us with sort of a hypothesis of, he thought if it's positioned right and correctly, that he could sell mechanics tools at Lowe's for a premium price. And so we went out and we started with some extensive research, qualitative and quantitative, to really understand the market, understand what the product needed to be, how it needed to communicate. So we worked with professional mechanics, professional non-mechanics, DIYers, knowing full well that we would probably never sell these tools to professional mechanics because, they buy their tools off the truck. And they mortgage their house. It's a Snap-on or Mac kind of thing. But we needed to understand from them what a professional tool needed to be. And so from there, we were able to really kind of dig in, create the foundation, the positioning of what the brand needed to be, how it needed to respond to the marketplace. We created the name, we created the identity, the logo, the lockup, created the merchandising for it, the packaging, the visual brand language for the tools themselves. We worked with the manufacturer then we went back into the market. A lot of the people that we had interviewed initially in the qualitative work, we created panels that we could go back periodically and test tools with them. Or from an ergonomic standpoint, how does this work? How does this feel? That kind of thing, until we got the design exactly the way we wanted, and then launched it out in the marketplace. Did really well right at first, and the merchants and the buyers got real anxious and started putting the brand on everything. And so we got a call in maybe a year after we had initially launched. From Bob.
That was quick, basically.
Well, yeah, it happened pretty quick.
Wow.
And Bob Gafella, who had been our client at Coca-Cola, had left Coke and had gone to Lowe's. And so he was in charge of merchandising, and he called up and he said, "Hey, we're about to break this brand. Can you guys come back in and help us get it back in its lane?" So we went back in and worked with them, and then it felt right for us to kind of stay with it. So we then spent the next 2 or 3 years sort of being the brand communication agency for that brand to sort of launch it further out into the marketplace and help get in motorsports. We got a lot of articles written in things in the hot rod magazines and that sort of thing. We did a media tour across the country.
Wow.
Where I was the brand manager for Cobalt, which is something we wouldn't normally do. Normally the client would be doing that, but it was kind of new to developing that, so we participated. We played that part, I should say, and ended up getting to meet Jay Leno and be one of his guests at one of the tapings of the Tonight Show.
That's pretty cool.
That was that was kind of fun. That was something that was completely unexpected.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So we've got a picture somewhere here in the office of me shaking, me hanging out with Jay.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. just tell her about that. That was after dinner. Yeah, we came into the show.
Yeah, it was really cool. We knew what a tool he was.
Right.
And at the time, he actually was writing an article maybe once a month for Popular Mechanics. So we had seen the folks at Popular Mechanics, and they said, "Where are you headed next?" And said, "Well, we're going to be in LA." And they said, "Well, you ought to take Mr. Leno some tools." So we had a toolbox full of tools that we were literally going to drop it off at the studio in Burbank. And we called and spoke to his executive assistant, and she said, "Can I call you back?" And it was like, "Sure, no problem." Yeah. And a few minutes later, she calls back and she said, "Jay was wondering if maybe you could come to the show tonight, if you had plans." And it was like, "Let me think about it for a second." And it was like, "No, of course not." So we went over and got they had us in a guest room, and then we went and we sat in a section over next to the band, watched the warm up, and then watched the show. And then after the show, we were invited up on stage and to meet Jay, and we gave him his tools, and he took out a wrench and banged it on his table and held it up to his ear like a tuning fork.
Wow!
Which we had seen mechanics do that.
Really?
And he said, "This is a great tool. This is," so that was
impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you don't go that deep for everybody that comes through here, do you?
No.
So what's the standard for more like a smaller standard kind of client that comes in, what's the process then of getting them what they need and making sure that they love what you guys present?
Well, sure. Well, and that's a good point. All of our clients aren't great big. We also work with startups. We work with companies in early stage development and very small entrepreneurs from time to time. So we've got our range of clients is vast, and often the work that we do for those smaller clients is really, really involved because it's everything. We're helping them develop what their product is. We're helping them name their company. We're helping them create the identity for that business. They're packaging their point of sale. We may help them with how to actually launch the product out into the marketplace, help them source manufacturing, that kind of thing. So that's, and to be perfectly honest, as a design innovation experience firm, that's our sweet spot. That's what we love the most, is when we're able to have a seat at the table strategically with a client. We're working closely with them, taking them through that process from the very beginning, which is a design thinking all the way through implementation process. And by taking them through that in a collaborative kind of way, where we're gathering insights that are going to inform what we do in the design, we test, we prototype, we break it, we rebuild it, and we do that both for the brand and for the product, to make sure that it's just right, to when we get it to the end and we launch it. We've actually created a process of innovation for that company to then be able to continue as an ongoing concern and create new things. So, but yeah, we do have clients that'll come to us for a very specific thing that we need, but in almost every instance, we do our best to get back to a strategic level, just to validate what the challenge actually is and understand, and potentially challenge that problem.
Right.
That may only be a symptom.
So they come and say, we need a new website. It may not be that they need a new website. It may they need a whole other group of things. That
It could very well be, yes, you do need a new website, but that's not your real problem.
Right.
The reason you need a new website is because you're not communicating very well. You're not being authentic, you're not communicating with transparency and truth, or it could be that you've lost your message. You're not as relevant as you used to be at one time. And why is that? Because as a company, it moves up this trajectory, very often they lose some of the culture that helped get them started, especially in founder companies or legacy companies. And you get to a certain point, and to continue to grow, you do the logical thing. You try and operationalize yourself to the next level. Well, the thing that you're forgetting about is what made you who you were to begin with. So you might lose your message. You might lose your relevance in doing that. And so reaching back and really understanding why you exist. And then what are those compelling truths, or we call pillars, of your brand, and how are you communicating those in every single touch point, both internally and externally. And that's how you build that brand ecosystem, that every interaction is an experience internally. How HR handles talent search and acquisition and retainment has as much to do with your brand as anything else.
Never would have thought that.
Oh yeah, one of our clients is the largest private practice, clinician-owned and operated practice of physical, occupational, and speech therapists in the country. They're in about 21 states now. And the ongoing work that we did for them was really around recruitment and retention. And it was really to understand, what does that perfect, ideal candidate need to be like? Because this is it's physical and occupational speech therapy for the geriatric, for the aging. And so they have house calls. They make house calls. So you have to have a particular type of therapist anyway. Very entrepreneur minded, self-starter. They create their own schedules and those kinds of things. So where they're at from a mindset is really important in terms of how you recruit. And being able to recruit in a way that you get that best talent, and then you express it, and then you allow them to become your brand, and that's where the retention piece comes. And so from an employer brand, it's so important, and we do work around all of those areas. So if we're working on a corporate brand, very often there's an employer brand piece of it, as well as a consumer or customer brand piece of it.
Okay.
So the in-facing messaging and the out-facing messaging has to be consistent. Otherwise, it's not defensible as a position ultimately.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never thought about it, but yeah, it makes complete sense.
Oh yeah. Well, with most of the brand work we do, especially as it relates to corporate identity, we'll create a brand and culture guide, which is something that is used internally to talk about the brand, so that all of the employees understand what they stand for. And when you take them and they begin to believe it, they buy into it, that's where that's your best sales tool, because now you're creating brand ambassadors for your own brand. And who can sell your brand better than those that own it,
right,
that are about it all the time? And so creating that sort of an advocacy around your brand, it not only creates a better employee, a happier employee, a more efficient employee, but also becomes a sales tool.
Okay. Yeah. So once you've gone through all this, and say you decide that they need some creative where they need photography, videography, or something like that, how do you guys go about that process from coming up with the concept to hiring the people, the artists who are going to take care of that, to finding locations, to all that kind of, how's that work for you guys?
Well, sure. Well, depending again on the type of client we've had retail apparel, we've had fashion apparel clients in the past, we've had consumer good clients. And typically, when we're going through that process, again, it's what are we trying to communicate? What's the emotion that we're trying to evoke? And from there, we will typically, if we're scheduling a video shoot or a photo shoot for a particular thing, whether it's their website or whether it's communication, we think about what is the message, what's the story we're trying to tell, and we'll from a creative standpoint, our creative team of graphic designers and art directors, creative directors, writers, we work together in symbiotically in that direction, moving from strategy into creative, where we'll storyboard ideas, we'll come up with our shot list.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, if you guys did the storyboard. And
all that. We'll story, and depending on the client, sometimes it's looser.
Right.
For other clients, it's really, really detailed. Like for Coca-Cola, for instance, I did a photo shoot years ago in Franklin, Tennessee, and our shot list had to be so dead on that we completely storyboarded it out, sketched it out, worked with the photographer in building the sets. And had pretty much pre-approval, because it was a co-branding situation. So we had pre-approval from both brands before we got on to set. And then the trick was how to keep the two brands kind of at arm's reach and away from the photographer while he's doing his work. You know about that. You know all about that. So then all of a sudden now you become account manager as well as creative director, and they're talking into each ear, and then you're talking to your photographer and trying to create an equitable situation. But it turned out really, really well.
How close was the final product to what you sketched out?
Almost dead on.
Really?
It was, as a matter of fact, even some of the perspectives that we did, there was one shot where we wanted to shoot kids in a treehouse, and so we built a treehouse, and
where'd you find the location for the treehouse?
Okay, so Robin Hood is the photographer that we worked with in Franklin.
That's a hell of a name.
I know, right? Pulitzer Prize winner.
Wow.
Yeah, really great shooter. He did a book on Tennessee that's really beautiful. But he had a great eye. He saw our storyboards. He said, "Let me go out. I'll do Polaroids." That was a while ago. Let's do Polaroids and that sort of thing. And he actually had a friend who had this gorgeous oak tree in their backyard, and he got up on their roof of their garage and shot the perspective that we were thinking about. Said, looks great. Let's sort of see if we can paint it in, and based on how we were going to shoot down on it, the treehouse ended up only being like 7 feet off the ground.
Really?
But it looked
higher, yeah.
It looked like it was way up. But we built a trap door in it where Mom was coming through the trap door with refreshments and that kind of thing. Kids were up, and it was also a safety issue. We didn't want. We had young kids that we needed to make sure we built something that was safe and sound. But others, shoots like the shoots you and I've been on together, where it's a little freer and looser, if it's fashion apparel, where you're trying to get movement and that sort of thing. But always we're really trying to create that emotion, whatever that happens to be, whether it's for a campaign or whether it's more sustainable in terms of we're doing video for a website. Right. Or we're doing still photography to match up with video that we're doing, like some of the work that we've done together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So how often do you guys work with photographers or videographers or even graphic designers? I know you guys have a stable of them here, but that are new to you. Maybe not necessarily new in the business, but new to you guys that you haven't worked with before.
Every so often, from a photographer or videographer standpoint, if it's a particular thing or a particular location or somebody that we'd like to shoot with who's not available, or in some cases it's been I'm looking for a particular style.
Right.
And so going through Black Book and those kinds of things, you're just kind of looking, and then all of a sudden you see there's I love this image. And very often that's what our graphic designers are doing in that planning stage, is they're looking online for swipes. And so we're sort of creating style, like we're going to do laydowns and I want it to feel like this. I want it to be backlit. I want a rush of light coming through. I want bright and airy and that, or I want something really moody. And I want to think about it from that perspective. Or selective focus. I want to play with the eye and the emotion and hear 10 tears of kind of what we're talking about, what we're thinking about. And you look at one of them, and this is a particular photographer. You go, well, let's take a shot and let's see. But the other is back to relationships. You have a really good shoot with a photographer and you start to develop that relationship, you begin to rely on them and they begin to think like you think, and you start to read one another's mind, and that whole creative process becomes a lot more seamless.
Right.
And the success of the shoot goes up dramatically. With that relationship.
So is that how you guys find, like if you are looking, do you mainly use Workbook or a Black Book or whatever at the time, or do you guys delve into Instagram now, or do you a lot of?
Yeah, it's everything is digital now, including the output of what we do. So probably 40% of our brand work is digital, maybe more. So we've different tools, but Instagram accounts we're definitely looking at. We'll go through and we'll look for similar products to sort of see from a styling standpoint if we see anything that catches our eye.
Do you want to see like personal stuff on the Instagram account, or do you want to see basically just their portfolio? on the Instagram? Do you care, like, here's some shots I've done, like 3 or 4 shots I've done for clients, and oh, look, here's me with my puppy, or whatever it is, or I hear me and the kids on vacation, or do you want, or is that just distracting, like, all right, I don't, or do you just not give it?
It depends on how it's curated. I mean, because we're designers. I mean, if you go on our Instagram account and you sort of scroll down, it's a lot tighter in terms of how it's curated. One of my senior graphic designers, she sort of manages our Instagram account, and it's real particular about what's going to get placed next to what. Yeah. Not necessarily the subject matter, but from a color, from a texture, from a context of how that actually works. And so at the end of a month or the end of a year or whatever, as you scroll down, it has a feel to it. And, we kind of look at that for all the folks that we sort of work with, because you want to get some sort of sensitivity to kind of how they think about things. And, but having personal stuff in there doesn't bother me at all, because it kind of helps me understand more about the personality of that particular photographer, and may sort of give us some indication of how that relationship is going to go.
Okay.
So,
well, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything. From a social media perspective and a lot of the work that we do with our clients is related to creating a social media strategy. So certain channels are good for certain things. Like LinkedIn. We're pretty stodgy about making sure that that's very business oriented.
Right.
The work that they're going to publish or they're going to post, those kinds of things is kind of buttoned up. And versus if they've got a Facebook page for their company or whatever, that can be more social around what happens with a company picnic and you bring your dog to work day kind of thing. So you get that sort of flow. And then of course, like Instagram, again, it's kind of you're sort of telling a story. You're visually telling a story of what's going on there. So how that's curated and what's the messaging there.
So with everything being so digital now, if somebody came in to meet with you, do you have a preference over, say, a printed portfolio as opposed to an iPad? Does it matter? Or is the one that you just still like better?
I want them to bring something.
We've
had a couple,
as opposed to their iPhone, their phone, like, hey, look, there's my stuff.
We've had a couple in the past where they come in and when somebody, especially a designer, is coming in to apply for a job, and they come in and they don't bring their portfolio, they expect you to have it and throw it up on the.
Wow.
Yeah, happened. It's only happened a couple of times, but those are real teaching moments for that designer.
Do you have this meeting quickly, or do you actually sit there and go, listen, next time, here's what you should do?
It kind of goes like, I'm not going to hire you.
Right.
But let's take this moment as a teaching moment to say, the next creative director you go talk to, you better have your portfolio, and you better have a copy of your resume, and you better have something to write on and something to write with. Because they're probably not going to be as nice about it as I'm being to you right now. But it's only happened a couple of times.
That's shocking.
But yeah, with today, with motion and everything else, we're pretty much set. We know that you're going to come in with a tablet, or you're going to come in and we try to provide so that you can throw it up on the screen. But if we're looking for print work, it's really nice to see what print looks like. Because there's still some traditional, we're doing a corporate brochure or something like that, where that's where it's going to play out. It's really nice to see that work or examples of that work, how it got printed.
I've noticed when I go to meetings, because I have both. I have a printed portfolio and I have my iPad Pro or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that when you go in there a lot, I'm just, oh my God, it's a portfolio. I haven't seen one of these in a while.
I know.
And they're just like flipping through it and just feeling it,
well,
I guess.
It's still depending on kind of what generation you're in, you still love the texture, the tactile feel of having something to look at. It's and having been heavily in print and in environmental design for a long time, then moving toward digital, it's still refreshing to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you guys have an in-house producer? You rely on photographers or whoever to bring in
We'll
producers?
typically look to the photographer to help us. Now we've produced some stuff in-house. We've got full-time project management.
Okay.
So, and our project managers are not designers. So we'll work, if we need to come in and be producer, we'll do that, but we love working with a producer. A lot of times it's based on budget. Yeah, we'll have if the client just doesn't have the budget, then we'll have our project manager kind of take over production of it, or we'll even have one of the graphic designers, art directors, kind of sort of stand in and work with the photographer.
Well, that's good, man.
Yeah, we're pretty flexible that way, but there are those budgets where you get to have a pretty good sized crew, and then there are those where it's 3 of you.
Right. Yeah.
But the work is still good. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've had all those. Yeah. From one into the other. So I understand completely.
Sure.
All right, so last 3 questions I kind of ask everybody.
Okay.
What's the toughest part of your job, you think? Or the one thing that you wish everybody knew, that so they think it's so easy doing what you do. What do you think? What would you like people to know about the end of your job, or the toughest part?
Well, the creative process is a lot more involved. Yeah. Design thinking is a lot more involved, and because most people only see the end result. Right. They see the end product. They don't see how you made the sausage.
I think you go into a room through darts until somebody comes up with an idea.
Oh yeah,
hey, I got it.
Well, I mean, we even joke about it. When we're name development is pizza and beer,
right?
and that's sometimes what clients think, but it's a lot more involved in that, and the whole design process is so involved and iterative, and you're not going to hit it the very first time. But it's the collaboration and working back and forth as a team to get to that solution, constantly reflecting back against your goals and that sort of thing. Most people aren't supposed to see that.
Right.
But that's where the value is, so that the solution is the most appropriate it can possibly be. Mm-hmm. So that's it's pretty hard to explain, but when you get it, you really get it. And right. when you have a client that appreciates the design, the process, it allows you to then take them and to a new level.
Well, it makes sense if you say that's the toughest part, because that's the part where you're doing your best on your end to try to make sure your client's happy with what you present them.
That's right.
Just be like dealing with clients, then you're like, all right, well, you don't put a whole lot of thought into whatever, because you just take out that your clients don't like what you present every single time.
And your design team, they're all altruistic. They're looking for the greatest success they can have. And that's as a mentor and leader of that group, that's another area that an 80% solution for you as a designer very often is 110% solution for your client. Oh, yeah. And so there's an expectation that you want to try to create, that you've exceeded expectations on this project. You didn't get everything that you absolutely wanted in that or out of that, but what you did do is you created something that was award-winning. It works for the client, it works for the client's customer, and they now trust you for you to take them to the next level, to be able to get them closer to perfection,
right?
Which you'll never have.
Well, yeah.
But we all want perfection.
Well, of course. Yeah. You just got to learn you can't really achieve it.
Right.
Or else you drive yourself crazy.
But you can't be too disappointed either. If it doesn't come as far as you wanted it to come that first time.
Yeah. Just
knowing that you've done a great job, knowing that you've exceeded expectation, you've met the criteria, it's going to give you another swing at the bat.
One thing for me, it's making, even if I don't look at it and think it's 100% where I want it to be or exactly what I want, if my client's like, we love this,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I've at least done my job.
That's
and
right.
I've made them happy and given them what they needed, and then maybe next time we can.
Well, there again,
go a little farther.
that's where the relationship becomes so important, because then you become that trusted advisor,
Yeah.
and you're able to stay with that client even when that client goes somewhere else. They come back to you
Yeah.
because they know what they're going to get, and you continually help move them to the next level, in terms of achieving the kinds of things you want to do.
So I ended up shooting food a couple of times. I did not want to because our director just said you can't.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of the job?
I think the joy of being around the team we've created and developing relationships is got to be it. I mean, you have to maintain such a high level of curiosity
Yeah.
to be good at what you do in this particular field and industry, and being surrounded with other curious people is a joy, because every day is an adventure. Every day is going to be something new, and you're likely to have good surprises every day.
Yeah.
You'll have some bad ones, but more than not, it's that, and sort of coaching,
Yeah.
teaching. For me, that's kind of where I'm at now. I hire people to replace me, and I've got some of the best.
And they love you, by the way. Because the shoots I've been on when you're not around, never heard a bad word about you. If your name comes up, it's always about how great you are.
Oh, wow.
And how they like you and all that. There's never been like, Jamey, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, now I'm embarrassed. No, it's I've got super talented people, and we have an orientation. We have a culture.
Yeah.
And that's so important in any business, especially a creative business, but in any business, developing that culture is paramount to being able to get the most out of your folks. And so I try to be, take a position of servant leadership, and I try to be there, try to be the net, but it's their show. I want them to do their best and show out.
Well, you're doing a good job of it, from everything I can tell.
Well, thanks.
All right, last question. What is the most interesting, strangest thing that has happened to you in this job?
Holy cow. Worst, strangest.
It can be both. It can be one or the other. Weirdest, psychotic.
Yeah, my plane ran out of fuel one time over Pennsylvania in a snowstorm.
Okay.
It ended up, obviously it ended up
yeah.
nicely, but I had been one client during the day was taking a quick flight from Harrisburg into Newark, where I was meeting Mike Kelly and guys from PVH that we were working, and it was a snowstorm. So I was on a little like Dash 8 or something like that. So we got off the ground and we got up, and we almost immediately, they were closing airports. JFK was closing, and then LaGuardia was closing, so everything was being pushed to Newark. And so we got into this pattern. And they had only planned for a short flight. And we circled for a couple of hours.
Really?
And finally, it was like, we're out of fuel. And so they opened up the airport at Allentown. It had already closed. They went out, they opened it up, tried to scrape and we came in on fumes. They landed the plane, they put us all on a bus, and we rode the bus to Newark. Meanwhile, I've got my clients who were picking me up. This was pre 9/11. They're in the airport in Newark, and our flight just goes off. It just disappeared. It's like, where's that flight from Harrisburg? Well, sir, we don't know. So there was, and cell phones and that kind of thing. So I show up like 2.5, 3 hours late, but they're still there waiting on me.
That's impressive that they sat there for that long just waiting.
Oh yeah, that was one of those. It was, you just didn't know. You just didn't know. What started out as a normal day turned into anything but a normal day at the end of the day.
Yeah, wow.
I was also in New York when the power went out. In 2002.
Yeah.
And so we actually had an office in New York for 7 years, and so I commuted back and forth, and I happened to be up there, and we had just come out of a client meeting, and had stopped off at the local watering hole down on 36 in Madison when the power went out. Nobody thought about it for a little while, but then people started to get antsy about it. And then ultimately, I ended up walking. I was staying at the Gramercy Park Hotel, and I ended up walking down Park Avenue all the way down with this sea of humanity, and the lights were completely out. And fortunately, it was before the Gramercy had upfitted, so it had had a key lock.
Oh yeah.
And so I was able to get up to my room eventually. But no power. And the next day, I took a flyer. I had a driver picking me up at the office at 11 o'clock, but I had not been able to communicate at all. And so I just took a chance and walked over to the office, and was sitting on the curb, and right there Leo pulls up, and so as soon as we crossed through the tunnel back into New Jersey, I had phone service, everything.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Wow.
That was weird.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, but, it's just,
At least it worked out.
yeah, it was good.
Well, Jamey, thank you very, very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Mark, my pleasure.
Great.
My pleasure. We've enjoyed our relationship for a number of years and working with you, and hope to continue to do so in the future.
Well, me too. Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Behind the Visual. If you like it, let everybody know about it. Share it with your friends, like, comment, all that kind of stuff, so we can stick around. Thank you guys.
Thanks. Appreciate it.